I was driving in downtown Dallas. It was like 5 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and I was on GHB out of my mind, had no business being behind the wheel. And I ended up...
She's been my friend for about the past 6 years now, I think. I didn't realize until just now that it's been that long, but Danielle and I have come very close. We didn't see each other for a while and started seeing each other at the gym, and I followed her entire journey, and it's been a big inspiration to me, whether she knows it or not. I've always been watching from afar, and so just to watch your transformation has been just an absolute inspiration to me. So everybody, I'd like you to welcome Danielle. Do you want to tell a little bit about your story? Tell me who you are.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. I really appreciate that, and I feel the same way about you. So it's an honor to be here, just having a conversation with you.
Thanks.
Yeah, my story is I grew up. I was adopted at birth. I was a really lonely kid, and I feel like I started using things to feel okay at a very young age. Started with food, attention, people pleasing, and then drugs and alcohol were kind of the icing on the cake for me. And
real quick, do you think that comes from adoption, or do you think that played a part, or that was just you?
I don't think so. I was adopted completely at birth, so I knew what was going on the whole time from an early age. My parents told me I was adopted, and I think there are probably some like layers to that I'm still discovering. But I don't think that's the reason why. I think the dysfunction in my family was overwhelming for a little kid. My mom was, dealing with her stuff, and my dad was very avoidant, and it was just a dark environment for a kid. And so I did what I could to cope, and develop these coping strategies that I've had to unlearn, So growing up was really dark, and I found drugs and alcohol, and then it became this exciting thing for me, and it was a lot of fun for a long time. And then it took me down a dark path, and ended up in treatment and got sober. But my journey has been more about, this coming home to myself, and, gaining self-worth and knowing that I'm worthy, no matter what, that I don't have to be or look or obtain anything to be just as worthy. And so, the recovery created a baseline for me to start to tear down some of those walls and belief systems that held me back for a long time.
Right.
And a lot of that involved, a big part of my story is an eating disorder. A big part of my story is learning how to be authentic, and then obviously sobriety. So
as far as eating disorder goes, was that like binge and purge? Like what did it look like?
All of the above.
Oh.
So restricting, binging, purging, and then just really like an unhealthy relationship with food in general. Just trying to manage it in any way I could, right? Like I was telling her earlier, like punishing idea around food, like, oh, I ate a cookie, so I have to work out really hard, or and it was a lot of that punishing behavior for a long time.
Right. What was you're going through the eating disorder, how many years did that last? Like what did that, or has it just been an ongoing thing, or?
No, so I have found recovery in that as well, but it was the first few years of my recovery where it was the worst, and to be honest, like that was the thing that I did not think that I was going to overcome. And I had this moment where, I had been sober for like a year, and I'm, like knee deep in this addiction that felt completely out of control, that felt so dirty, that felt so shameful, that was like, I could stand on mountaintop and tell you that I was addicted to methamphetamines,
right?
But to tell you that I was struggling in this area was like, I felt completely naked,
right.
And was a really hard thing for me to overcome. And to learn how to be honest, to start to be honest and open up about this. Because as we know, like when I voice things, it loses its power.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm holding on and hiding in these ways, like it's just got this like chokehold on me.
Right.
And so I remember this moment where I, so desperately wanted to like be free of this and felt a lot of like anger towards God. And, it's like, I got sober, like I'm living this life. Like, why am I dealing with this?
Right.
Like,
now it's this.
Why this, like, and just feeling a lot of pity and feeling a lot of hopelessness in that area. And it's been really powerful because there was a moment later when I finally like had worked through all of that stuff and overcame it. And it was something that I could openly talk about, where these women started to come into my life that were struggling with the same thing. And it was like the moment like, okay, God, like I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand now, I know why I had to go through what I had to go through, because there are so many women who need to hear what I have to say and how I did it.
Right. That's literally what I was going to ask you. How common, I mean, within the recovery community or just at large with regular people, how common is this for?
Very. Oh yeah. I mean, it's like the percentage that I've come to know, there is probably about 15% more than that who are in that position and scared to talk about it. Right. So what I think plus some.
Right. And I mean, I just, I know more from a male perspective, I think I've said this to you before, but I remember seeing a meme one time and it was like, I think it showed the statue of David and it said, this is me going to the gym expecting to achieve the physique of a Greek god. And then the other part of the meme was, this is when I realized all I did was give myself a severe case of body dysmorphia. Yep. And like, you and I have spoke intimately about it. It's like, I look in the mirror and I don't think I definitely don't see what other people tell me that they see and stuff like that. And so just from a male perspective, just trying to paint a picture of, you have this substance abuse issue for so long, and then you finally get rid of that. And then now all of a sudden, like you're looking at yourself, you're looking at all the damage you've done for these past years, you're in addiction, you're not working out, you weren't eating well. And then now you have to deal with this. And then that comes with all this, mental health, this stuff to go along with it. Yeah. So let's go back for a second to your substance abuse. You said methamphetamines was your drug. Mm-hmm. How long was that last, and how did that even start?
Yeah. So interesting story. I was never afraid to use any drug. I don't know why. I just never had any fear around it. What I never thought I would use was heroin or meth, right? Mm-hmm. But I would party and I did all this stuff in high school, and weed was a normal thing for me, and so I got this job at this barbecue place, and in hindsight I can see how sick this man was. But the man who owned it would hire all of these beautiful 17-year-old, 16-year-old women, and then offer alcohol at the end of the night and hang out, and we thought he was cool, like he drove a Range Rover, he was good looking, right. But he, now as an adult woman, I'm like, someone who's 20 years old, a man who's 20 years older has no business, inviting young women who are underage to drink with him. And so, I would stay after work and drink, and one night I went back in his office and he had lines out on the table, and, I had done cocaine in high school. It was like no big deal. I didn't really like it, but I would do it,
Right.
It's kind of the mind of an addict, right?
Yeah.
But
if it's there, I'm doing it.
100%. Yeah. And so he offered a line and I was like, absolutely, I'm already drunk, whatever. And I did it. And the moment I did it, I was like, whoa, this is not cocaine.
Yeah.
And it was like off to the races for me. And I don't even remember what I said. I just remember being like, this is not, like, what is this? And then just doing it all night, But what it gave me was like this sense of like, this sense of power, right? And someone who struggled with body image stuff, it was like the perfect scenario for me. Like I never wanted to eat. So it was a double-edged sword for me. And, that lasted, that period of time lasted for about a year. And then I got sober. I didn't really get sober, but I stopped using that substance and turned to alcohol, and then found my way into a really toxic relationship with a man who had a past with meth as well. And once we got together, it was off to the races. I moved to Dallas. I lived in the neighborhood out there, and they love that stuff. So it was just like the norm.
The neighborhood?
The neighborhood, yeah.
I'm assuming you mean that's a gay neighborhood.
Yeah, the gay neighborhood. It's Oak Lawn in Dallas.
Okay.
And it was just like,
Neighborhood.
that's what they call it. That's what they call it. So,
I never heard that.
yeah. So it was off to the races for me. And it was, there was a lot of things going on in that relationship that I had to turn a blind eye to. But I had lost my job. I lost my apartment. I lost everything. And this man was taking care of me. And so there were a lot of things that I had to pretend like I didn't see. And through that process, like my self-worth was just like stripped away little by little. Being in this like very questionable relationship and starting to push all my family away. And, when I did go see my family, like falling asleep at functions and, like Christmas, everybody's hanging out in the living room and I'm like nodding out because I haven't slept in 5 days,
right.
And so it was just that period of time was about 3 years every day.
Right.
And I needed it to wake up and get out of bed,
Yeah. You said nodding out in front of your family. I remember I went home on leave from the military for Christmas. And I remember going to my aunt's house and my entire family's there and I'm in uniform and center of attention because I'm in uniform and all that. And I got high right before we went. And my mom was trying to put focus on me because she's so proud that I'm back from the military. And I just remember I didn't want that focus. And she asked me a question and I was answering the whole table and I just and just nodded out in front of everybody. And I remember like coming back to and waking up and everybody just sitting there like,
yeah.
So I know exactly how that feels. And
it's mortifying. It's embarrassing.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's like, oh my God, I just want to disappear.
Right.
So that's what I did.
Right.
And I just stopped showing up to those events and I stopped, as much as I cared and as much as I wanted to be a part of those things, like I just felt like being away was the best way to protect them from me.
How did you end up breaking the chains from that relationship? Because I know, I've been in toxic relationships and I know how difficult they can be to get away from because there's an addiction aspect to it. You're addicted to that person just like you are a drug or anything else. Yeah. What was it for you that enabled you to be able to get away?
Well, it was a series of events. I think God just plucked me right out of what was going on in my life entirely. But, there was 2 events happened. I was driving in downtown Dallas. It was like 5:00 on a Friday afternoon, and I was on GHB, out of my mind, had no business being behind the wheel. And I ended up passing out with my foot on the brake in the middle of an intersection. And cops knocking on my window, I come to, and I'm like, oh, I'm so screwed. I'm going to jail. Never been to jail before, But I was like, this is it. At this point in my life, I have warrants out for my arrest, traffic tickets, warrants, but suspended driver's license, tags are out on my car. Like life is not looking very good for me,
right.
And I get pulled over, and I don't know where this story came from, but I convinced the cop that I'm jobless, right? But I convinced him that I went to happy hour with my work friends. And I only had 2 drinks and somebody bought me the second drink and I started to feel weird after. And I don't know how or why, but he ran my license. He didn't see my warrants. He didn't see my expired tags, nothing. And I walked away scot-free. And they said, is there anybody that you can call? And I called the people down the street that I was like messed up with. That was all I knew who to call. My boyfriend at the time, who's a 2-time federal felon, and he comes and picks me up. They don't ID him or anything, and I get back to the place where we were at, and they're like, you need to chill, and I'm like, nope, gotta go, right? Because I have somebody's drug money on me, and I need to go. Right. I gotta go,
Yeah.
So I hop back in my car and I leave, and I just thank God. I know that a lot of us could say this, but like, thank God I didn't hurt anybody.
Right.
It's just a miracle. But so that event happened and it didn't slow me down at all. And it was like, for me, looking back in hindsight, it was God being like, girl, you don't have much more of this left, How
many chances do you think you really have?
Yeah, exactly. And 1 week later, to the day, to the time, again, I'm out of my mind, driving my car, and I end up in a car accident. and don't hurt anybody, but I did hit somebody and totaled my car. And that was another moment for me where it was like, now I no longer had a vehicle and a means to go get what I needed to get, right? So it became harder and harder. I was like taking the train from my mom's apartment because, you know, I'm back at mom's house, don't have a car, kicked out of my apartment, the boyfriend and I, it's chaos, right? And I'm taking the train from Fort Worth to Dallas, right? And this shit's getting exhausting.
Right.
So anyway, my parents intervened on me and were like, you got to go to treatment. Like, we don't know what else to do. And at that point I was like, sign me up. Like, I don't want to live like this anymore. It was miserable. It wasn't fun for me anymore. My relationship was crazy. And so I went to treatment, and my counselor was like, you're not going back to Dallas. And I was like, where am I going? And she said, Austin, Texas. And I said, okay, cool. And I packed my stuff and I moved here.
So that was the time away, and then you kind of getting of your right mind was let you know that you were obviously shouldn't go back to that relationship and everything like that.
Yeah, it was very clear to me.
Right.
You know.
So you would say that's your rock bottom moment?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't think that was my rock bottom moment. I think that was one of them. Right. But I think my rock bottom moment was around a year and a half sober, and when I'm, you know, on my knees begging God to please remove this eating disorder, this level of inauthenticity, this I didn't know how to be myself and show you who I was, and that was more painful than being, you know, an addict that rolled up into treatment. Right. You know, because I so desperately wanted you to see me, and I so desperately wanted help and to be vulnerable, and didn't know how. And that is the scariest place to be.
Right. Absolutely. So, you know, through your whole journey, you go through all these things. You're dealing with eating disorder, you're dealing with addiction, bad relationships, all that. You finally get sober. You get your life on track. Do you have like a defining moment where it's your moment of redemption, where you just kind of look at yourself in the mirror, you take a look around, and you're like, all right, I made it. Like, I'm me again. I'm back. Do you have that moment? Mm-hmm. What was it?
Yeah. So for the next few years, I had overcome this eating disorder. I had found relief. I had started to step into my more authentic self. Right. I'm surrounded by powerful women who carried me through like the lowest spots of my life, and I'm starting to gain some self-worth. Right. And I start my fitness journey, and that, it was a lot of ups and downs, right? At first, it was a very punishing relationship I had with fitness, right? It was like, I got to look a certain way, I got to eat a certain way, I got to do these things.
Right.
But it was all tied up in my value, right? Mm-hmm. If I look this way, if I, present this way, then I'll be more worthy, mm-hmm. right? And once I look this way, then I'll have arrived, or I'll have, I'll be worthy enough for the relationship, for the job, for the whatever, right? And so that was kind of my thinking around it, and how I treated it for a long time. And so then I would do really well for a while, and then I would fall off, and then I would be like, well, fuck it, right? And I would get discouraged over and over again. And it was this cycle of like just feeling like a failure over and over and over again, and then regaining some self-worth and feeling like a failure, and doing all these crash diets and all the fad stuff, right? Like, how can I look the best the fastest, right? And none of that stuff works. It just doesn't. People want a quick fix. People want these things quickly. I mean, we live in America, right?
Yeah.
But none of that works, and none of it's lasting. And so I had this moment, and I'll never forget. It was 2020 New Year's, and I just was like so tired of this cycle, and feeling like something's got to give, and I had this moment of like, Danielle, you are so worthy exactly how you are. Like, you don't have to lose any weight. You don't have to change the way you look. You don't have to be any different. Like, you are so worthy, like how can we approach all of these areas of our life with that same mentality, with that truth, right? And it was like this moment of, no, I'm gonna show up to the gym because I said I would, because I love myself. I'm gonna start feeding my body good things because I love myself, right? And starting to, instead of it being like this thing that's gonna give me worth, it was like, no, I'm doing these things because I'm worth it.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And that was like the moment that things shifted in my life, and it stopped becoming about what I could look like and what I could, you know, any of that stuff, and more about like, I am worthy of taking care of myself, and I am worthy of all of these things right now.
Right.
You know?
I love the fact that your moment of redemption was a realization. It was a thought. It wasn't like this situation happened or this event happened or anything like that, but it was that moment of where the light came on. It's beautiful.
That's what happens when you're worn out.
Yeah.
The same thing over and over and over and over again.
Right.
I feel like you're hitting your head against the wall, and you're just, you know, that is exhausting.
Right. You've said a couple times, you've talked about community or the powerful women you surround yourself around. How important do you think that is for people?
Oh, it's non-negotiable.
Right.
We are not designed to be able to do this on our own.
Right.
We are designed to need each other.
Yeah.
Right. And so, you know, like, there's no way in hell I'd be where I am right now if it wasn't for the women in my life. And it brings me to tears when I think about how did I get so lucky to have all of these amazing people in my life? Like, how? Like, some people, you know, go their entire life and they had the one relationship, right? That's like, they had the one rock, the one anchor, the one person that really like has carried them. And I have like 7 or 8 women that I feel just as strongly about in that way, that I know feel the same way about me.
Right.
And who I look at and I'm like, I'm proud of the people that I am surrounded by, you know, like, yeah, there's no way I could have, I am the woman I am because of them and the part that they played.
I could not agree with you more. The community, you know, the people that are around me are 1000% why I do what I do today, why I am where I am. Without them, I would not be here. I remember a conversation I had recently. I was talking with a gentleman, and he talked with him, and it was always, you know, he's getting screwed, his job's fucking him over, this person's screwing him over, and all that. And, you know, I saw myself in what he was saying, because that was me. It was always a story, it was always a scenario or something, or I was getting wronged and this and that. And I can look at myself back then and know like what kind of energy I was putting out in the world. What was I being like to other people? And so that's what I started talking to him about. And I was like, man, like, all you're doing is just trying to bleed the world. What can you get? What can you take? And so nobody wants to be around you, man. Like, nobody wants to be around that. And it's a hard thing to say to somebody, but if you truly love them, you got to tell them what they need to hear. And I just started telling them about how when I started putting good energy out into the world, when I started trying to use my experience to help others, these amazing people that we just talked before we walked into this room, you know, where I have so many moments in my day-to-day life where it's like the rug is going to get pulled out from under me, and all these amazing people are just not going to be in my life for whatever reason, because sometimes I question, like, am I worthy of it? I feel, you know, am I this lucky to have these type of people to come into my life? And just, you know, I think if, you know, today's society, so many people are, you know, they want to get on social media and they want to bicker back and forth about politics or this or that, and take a look around and like the type of people you have, you know, in your life and the energy you're putting out into the world. It says so much about you. You know what I mean? But I could not agree with you more. I would not be sitting here talking with you right now had I not had the most amazing people in the world come into my life. So I think it's a valuable lesson for everybody. What would you say, you know, through your whole journey, like you've had, I'm sure, many learning lessons. What has been the most important learning lesson for you?
I mean, it doesn't matter how many times you fail or you fall, right? It's about getting up every single time. And there's going to be so many of those moments in your life where you just can, you know, sometimes you're going to go through a winning streak, right? And you don't experience a lot of that, but you're going to fail again, right? And you're going to fall again, you're going to fall short. And you have to get up. Yeah. You got to get up, because that's the power moment, you know?
my favorite quote from any movie is the Rocky Balboa movie where he's talking to his son and he's talking about nobody's going to hit you as hard as life and talking about getting up and stuff like that. It gives me goosebumps every time I think about it.
Well, and take ownership of your own life. You're the one in charge of your life. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't get back up or you're in a low spot and you're, that's on you. Like, that's why we have community. That's why we have each other, is like, we don't have to do it all alone, but you are responsible for where you're at.
Yeah,
period.
Hands down. I just heard a quote recently. I heard Mike Tyson say it. I'm sure it came from somebody else, but he said, how did it go? There's no, well, I forget exactly how he said it, but it was basically, there's no testimony without the test, right? And so, like, you're talking about getting back up again, like, through my whole journey, like, I was asked I did an interview one time, and they had asked me, what would I go back and tell my younger self to change so hopefully none of this stuff happened. And I thought about it long and hard, and I was like, honestly, I'm sorry for all the people that got hurt along the way, but I wouldn't change a thing because I understand now that I had to go through every single thing that I have to be who I am today, and I wouldn't change for who I am today for anything. And so it's a beautiful, thinking about that, like, without the test, there is no testimony. You have no story without all the tests and all the trials and tribulations.
It's so funny you say that, because I shit you not, I was on my way here, and for some, I don't know if it was a song that was on or something, but it was like, I think it was a Katy Perry song, and she said something like, if I would have known what I knew then now, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, I wouldn't change anything.
Right.
Because it shaped me into who I am today. Right. And all of those experiences made me more strong, made me more equipped to help other people, Yep. So if I changed it, I wouldn't be me.
Right, exactly. So someone listening to this right now, they're identifying with everything you're saying, but they're struggling. What do you say to them right now?
That getting honest may sound scary, and showing, the ugly parts, your shadows, all of those things feel really scary to do, but that is where the freedom is. And these belief systems that if I show you who I am, all of the ugly, right, that you're not going to love me, is a lie. In fact, that's what kept me separate from people for so long, is because I would try to make it look all good on the outside so that you love me, right? But people don't relate to perfect. I do not relate to someone who has it together. I just don't.
Right.
And so when you tell me, like, these vulnerable parts about you, or the scary things, or the, I just want to bring you in,
right.
I just want to, I'm like, yeah, man, I get it, And so that was kind of the beginning for me. It was like walking through that fear and proving myself wrong. Like, if I show myself, I'm not going to be abandoned. I'm going to be loved more, right? And I'm going to be appreciated more for my courage.
Right. And that's exactly what happens too. Once you show that vulnerability, once people see it, like, oh, she's a real person.
Yeah.
They don't just see this person that's got multiple years sobriety, that's got their shit together now. Yeah. But once you start sharing those vulnerabilities, that's what people identify with, and that's what helps your message get across. The one thing I keep being told, I thought they were talking, people were talking shit at first, but they were like, oh, like, when I go out and speak places, they're like, oh, you're so raw, and, you're not polished. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, but then I saw speakers, I've been a part of events where people are speaking and they're just super polished. Like, they've been to school to speak. They do all these different things. They got their suit on and all that. Like, that's not me. You know what I mean? And oftentimes, like, I've spoke to crowds where most of the people in the crowd are coming up to me afterwards, and that's what I'm hearing is, you're so authentic, like, you know what I mean? And that's what draws people in, because they can actually relate it to it, and you don't seem like some mythical, unattainable type of person. So
exactly. Yeah, it's intimidating.
Right.
It's intimidating, and then we live in a society where comparison is the trap, right? And so if I'm comparing myself to you, who's polished, who I think has got it together, and it's like, in a sense, perfect, right? Like, that's overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
But when I see somebody who's like, oh no, I've been there, I've done that, I've experienced that, you know, like
Right.
it draws me in.
Absolutely. Who are the big inspirations in your life? Is there people you're following on social media? Is there family, friends? Like, who are your main inspirations that you draw from each day?
I mean, not to sound, you know, poetic or whatever, but the women in my life are probably the greatest inspirations to me, who allow me to see they're broken and walk alongside with me. You know, it's such a gift to get to walk with them and grow with them. You know, my best friend Jordan is probably one of the greatest inspirations to me. We share the same birthday, same year. We got sober together. I didn't know her before sobriety, but getting to watch her grow, knowing where we came from and where she is now is so inspiring and so powerful. I've got a front row seat to it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But outside of that, people like Whitney Simmons, Katrina Wright, people like influencers on Instagram who are raw, who show, like, talk about mental health, who talk about all of these things openly, and are not just posing and you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, the rawness is what I love. So
Good. I love that.
strong women.
You're definitely one of them.
Thank you.
So I'll tell a story, and I don't remember if I've told you this before, but so I got into running early in recovery. Running transformed my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
What kept me away from the gym for years was the fact that I didn't want to go in there and feel like I looked stupid.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to think everybody's looking at me. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to do this exercise properly. I knew I didn't know that stuff. And so it kept me away from the gym forever.
Mm-hmm.
And then now doing, you know, working with people, training people each day and stuff like that, or going out within the recovery community, or just talking to regular people, I think the vast majority of people, I feel like, suffer from that.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to go in there and feel like they're being looked at, and nobody wants to go in there and, you know what I mean? Once you get in the gym and understand, like, if I see a person that's coming in that may be overweight, or you can tell it's their first time in the gym, me as a person that's in the gym every day now, I'm like, fuck yeah, like, you're in the right fucking place. Keep coming back. Like, and my favorite thing in the world is when somebody comes up and asks me how to do an exercise, or what exercise are you doing right there? What's that hitting, or something like that.
Yep.
I want to share all this information, but I'm not going to be the guy that's going to run around and just like, hey, do this, do this, do this to random strangers, you know what I mean? But I can remember a distinct day where, you know, I'm running all the time, and I had just gotten out of a relationship, and I'm feeling all bad for myself. And I saw you on Instagram, and you were kicking ass in the gym, and, you know, you and I had known each other, and I had known your journey and stuff like that. And the reason why you're such an inspiration to me, and why I hope everybody that listens to this follows you, because I've never seen somebody, you know, I almost can't imagine you being a person that's ashamed of yourself, or not unapologetically you, because I see you do your videos where you're in the car and you are singing your heart out, and it's like, I can't do that. I can never get on Instagram and just like be belting out a song. But it's like, that's fucking brave for someone to do that, and you to, you know, film your workouts or do some of the things you say on there and stuff like that. That was one of the things that made me get up off my ass and start going to the gym and get over that hurdle. And so had I not followed you, and had I not known you, I don't know that would ever happen, because there was some heartbreak in there. That was definitely a motivator, but I needed that extra little nudge. And it was like, oh shit, fucking Danielle's in there. Like, I need to get in there. You know what I mean? And so it's so crazy how we hadn't seen each other for you know, quite a while, and then we get reconnected in the gym. You know what I mean? And that's just watching you grind every day and get in there like that. Like, it's the best feeling in the world to me. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
So what was it like for you, getting over that hurdle to start going to the gym? Like, the interest was there, you wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
What was that like for you to actually walk in there that first day and do that?
I mean, overwhelming, terrifying. I started at Planet Fitness,
Right.
you know? I feel like that's like the starter gym for a lot of people.
Nothing against Planet Fitness. We love you, Planet Fitness.
Love you, Planet Fitness. Like, yeah, that, you know, like, right. I wouldn't change it for the world, because I didn't feel as intimidated there, you
Right.
know? But I remember walking around aimlessly at at the gym and being like, I hope nobody's looking at me, or like, you know, comparing myself to other people or whatever. And I just kept pushing through, you know, I just kept, you know, as someone who was overweight her whole life, who was not somebody who was ever picked. I was always the last picked, you know, that's how I viewed myself. That's how I think a lot of people viewed me, especially like in my younger years in school. I had to learn how to like mute some of that stuff out, you know, and just be like, we're not listening to the noise, just keep going, you know? And, you know, like I just taught myself a lot of stuff, I think in the same ways you did, right? I remember the first time I switched gyms and went from Planet Fitness to Gold's and was like, oh shit, I'm moving up in the world now. But they had like a regular squat rack, right? And I was like, fuck, I've never, you know, they only have Smith machines.
Right.
So I was like, how am I going to be? I'm going to like wobble or whatever. I'm going to look like an idiot. I don't know how to squat normally. And I just was like, fuck it. And I got up there and I remember unracking it and it going like this and me being like, nope, just gather your composure and just like do it. Like whatever, who cares?
Right.
And that was the moment where I was like, you know what? I don't really care what anybody thinks. Like I'm here for me.
Right.
And if you're judging me, like that's about you, not me.
Right.
You know? So
it's so funny to think a place that gave me so much anxiety to think about walking into at first, or a place I was so intimidated by. Now I can't imagine my life without it, and is my absolute mental health sanctuary. The best medicine a doctor has never prescribed for me. You know what I mean? I can't live without it.
Well, and being like, you know I know I haven't gone to the same gym in a while as you, but there for a while, and we were like the people at the gym every day, like at the same time, like when you and I weren't there, people would be like, dude, where's my people at?
Right.
You know,
Right.
like, and that feels good to know that you're a part of a family that feels inspired by you just being at the gym,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Like, what a cool thing.
Yeah, so I didn't work out at the one I normally work out. I worked out in San Marcos today, and I saw 3 guys that are part of our morning crew from the other
really?
one, and they all lit up, and it's like you see each other out in the world or like other different places, and it's like these are my people, like they get it.
Yep. Isn't it funny? Like half the people you don't even know their names, but it's like, what's up?
Yeah.
You know, like.
Right. I've fist bumped you 200 times, but I still don't remember your name. But I know, it's funny, I'll know all about their story, where they're from, where they work, all that stuff, and I won't remember their name.
Yeah.
But that's funny. So this is my favorite question to ask guests.
Okay.
You're in the UFC.
Okay.
You're about to walk out and fight for the title.
Yep.
What's your fight song? What are you walking out to? What gets you amped up?
Oh, for sure. Badass Woman by Meghan Trainor.
Oh, really? I don't know that 100%.
One. Play it when you leave here.
Badass Woman by
Meghan Trainor.
Meghan Trainor.
Yep.
All right. I'll have to check it out.
It's like the epitome. I am like, I feel like I embody that song.
Really? What is it? What kind of music is that?
Pop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you're coming out to a pop song.
I know. I had you fooled, right? You thought it was going to be some kind of rap, hip hop, something.
I didn't know. All right. So I want to play a little game with you.
All right.
I'm going to throw out some terms.
Okay.
And I just want you to give me the first thing that comes to mind. All right. Number 1, cardio.
Stairmaster.
Guilty pleasure.
Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy, the show. Good. Shopping.
Oh. Shopping.
Is that Sai your answer?
No, I like shopping. I'm just trying to decide what I would be shopping for.
Right.
Probably athleisure.
Athleisure. All right. Community.
A.
TikTok.
Funny. ADHD. I feel like, yeah.
Funny ADHD. Amazon.
Amazon vitamins.
That's all I order on this too. Politics.
Garbage.
Good. Kettlebells.
Love them.
You do?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah. Warm up.
Mm.
No.
Music.
Hip hop.
Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
Women.
Fucking badass.
I love that answer.
Yeah.
I think
Beautiful.
any woman listening to this right now definitely needs to follow you if you're open for it.
Yeah.
But just the level of authenticity that you post with your stuff and everything like that, and just the person I know you to be each and every single day, it's it's an honor to have you here. It's an honor to have you on, talk with you.
Well, I think too, I just want to say this is like all the vulnerable posts that I post about, like loose skin, cellulite, whatever, like the moments where you're like sitting in the parking lot of the gym and afraid to go in, right? Like all of those things. I don't every single time I post one of those, it's because I'm feeling so, insecure or fearful or whatever. And I just have this like, no, I'm like, fuck it, share it,
Right.
and people are always like, thank you so much. Like, you have no idea how much I relate to that. And I just want to be like, man, it's because I was fucking terrified in that moment,
Right.
and decided to share it.
One of the most powerful experiences I've ever had in sobriety was when I was in treatment the last time. I went to a men's retreat, and at one point in the weekend, everybody stood around a fire, and you admit in front of these men that you just spent this entire weekend with. You come off like your deepest, darkest stuff, right? And I remember a guy who had been there before, who I knew. He came up to me and he was like, "Hey man, brutal honesty. And I really wanted to get everything that I could out of this weekend. Like, I truly was invested and wanted to do it. But as soon as they said we were going to do that, I was like, I'm not giving you my deepest, darkest stuff, right? And that dude went up there and he came off his deepest, darkest stuff. And once he said his was so far worse than mine, I was like, oh, I'm being silly right now. And so I went up and I said mine. And I mean, they're bad, but it wasn't as bad as what he said. And I just remember it was like, that was so impactful that he did that and like fell on the sword, because it just allowed me to open up and talk about stuff that I never would have talked about before. And so then I would go back and I'd do these men's retreats, and I would always be the guy that's going to go up first and do that. And people come up and say that. And so I think that's just, I think you have an idea, but I don't think you know how impactful that is to the people that are following you and see you do that, because, you know what I mean? It lets people know that they're not the only one, or it's all, we think our problems are just so isolated to us and everybody, you know what I mean? Everybody's feeling like that.
Yeah.
So,
that's the disease, is isolation,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What are you working on personally? Do you have anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to promote? What you do, where you work, anything like that?
Personally, right now, I am on this journey of learning. I'm single. I'm in the dating pool, and
Don't be getting all up in her DMs.
No. What? But I keep being presented with these opportunities. I'm gonna call them opportunities because it's been really frustrating.
Okay.
But really having to, like, I used to take whatever came my way, right? Low self-worth, I'll take whatever, right? You say you like me, you think I'm whatever, okay, cool, sign me up. I'm gonna paint all the red flags white,
Right.
And that's not who I am today. And so I'm a woman with self-worth. I'm a woman who knows what she wants and what she deserves and all of these things. And so it's like all of these men that keep coming my way are presenting opportunities for me to, decide, like, no, I don't actually want to invest in this, or like, no, I'm not okay with this, and learning how to voice that and hold boundaries and be an exemplary woman, who can say no to somebody, or so that's kind of what I'm doing right now, or at least that's like what's prevalent in my life, and making choices that continue to affirm that I am, I'm worth it, and I'm deserving of the best,
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Do you if you want to, if you're open to it, if you want to throw out your Instagram handle or anything like that for people to follow you?
Yeah, sure. Instagram is Danielle_Nicole with 2 eyes, 31. And then my TikTok, I don't know what that is. Danielle Cobb, look it up. I don't know. It's, just funny and goofy stuff. So
it's great. It's good stuff. So one thing, the way we've been ending the podcast is called I Am Redemption. It's just a blanket statement that I think, anybody we have coming on here has been through adversity. They found their way out. They found their way on the other side, and they're living to tell about it. And so if you would be so kind, if you want to look into the camera, maybe throw out some I am statements. Who is Danielle?
Yeah. I am love. I am grace. I am compassion. I am powerful. I am beautiful.
I am redemption. Good shit. Danielle, I love you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. What an honor.